Rain fell softly over the quiet town of Morrow Creek that evening. The streets shimmered with reflections of yellow streetlights and the faint hum of thunder rolled in the distance. Inside an old, narrow house near the cemetery, Evelyn Carter, a hospice nurse, sat by her window, sipping lukewarm tea. She had seen many people leave this world, but tonight, something felt different. Evelyn's life revolved around caring for those who were nearing their end. She believed in dignity, compassion, and peace. Yet, in her 15 years of service, she had never encountered what she was about to witness, a visitor that came not in form, but in presence. It started on a Tuesday, when her new patient, Mr. Walter Green, an 87-year-old retired librarian, told her calmly, "Death doesn't wear clothes." Evelyn smiled politely. "That's quite an expression, Mr. Green." Walter chuckled faintly. "It's not an expression, my dear. It's the truth. You'll understand soon." She dismissed it as delirium, the way people sometimes speak before crossing over. But that night, when she returned home and placed her stethoscope on her nightstand, the sound of breathing filled her small apartment, steady, calm, and not her own. She looked around. Nothing. Just the creaking of the walls and the echo of her own heartbeat. The next morning, when she visited Walter again, he greeted her with a knowing smile. "You heard it, didn't you?" "What are you talking about?" she asked, trying to stay composed. "The breathing. That's how death comes. Not with a face. Not with a robe or scythe. Just a breath, like wind that remembers your name." Evelyn felt a chill crawl up her spine. "That's quite poetic, Walter." "Not poetry. Just truth," he whispered. Later that day, she checked his vitals, read him a passage from his favorite book, The Great Gatsby, and promised to bring him tea tomorrow. But when she arrived the next morning, Walter had already passed peacefully in his sleep. Beside his bed was a folded note. "Death doesn't wear clothes because it doesn't need to. It's not something to see, it's something to feel. Thank you for helping me feel human one last time." Evelyn sat in silence for a long time. For the first time in her career, she cried, not because he was gone, but because of the peace in which he'd gone. Days passed. She took new patients, visited new homes, but the presence never left. Sometimes, late at night, when the world was still, she would feel that same slow breathing beside her, like the room itself was alive. It wasn't frightening anymore. It was understanding. One evening, she received a call about a patient in the outskirts, Martha Ellison, a retired teacher with terminal heart failure. When Evelyn entered her dimly lit home, Martha smiled warmly. "I know who you are," Martha said softly. Evelyn blinked. "We've met before." "No, dear. But death told me you'd come." Evelyn froze. "What did you say?" Martha smiled faintly. "Death doesn't wear clothes, but sometimes, it sends someone who does, someone kind." It was the same phrase again. The same message. Evelyn didn't know if it was a coincidence or something divine, but she couldn't ignore the feeling that maybe, in her own way, she was a messenger of peace. She stayed by Martha's side for 4 days straight. They talked about life, laughter, and forgiveness. On the 5th night, as Martha took her last breath, the curtains in the room fluttered though no window was open. Evelyn whispered, "It's okay. You can rest now." A stillness followed. Not emptiness, but a soft quiet that felt full of meaning. Weeks turned into months. Evelyn kept a notebook now. She called it the Book of Breath. Each time a patient passed, she'd note the moment, the room temperature, and what they said in their final minutes. She began noticing a pattern, a stillness before the end, a faint breeze, sometimes a soft sigh that seemed to come from nowhere. One night, as she closed her journal, the familiar presence filled her room again. This time, she spoke out loud. "I know you're here. You don't wear clothes, but you carry something, don't you? You carry memory." The lamp flickered once. She smiled. "If you're listening, Thank you. From that day, Evelyn wasn't afraid anymore. She began to tell families not to fear the moment of passing. She would say, "It's not the end, it's just breath returning to breath." Years passed, and Evelyn grew older. Her hair turned silver, and her steps slower, but she continued her work until the very end. One quiet evening, her apprentice nurse, Clara Jensen, sat beside her bed. Evelyn looked peaceful, her notebook resting on her lap. "Clara," she whispered, "when the room feels heavy, don't be afraid. It just means death came to listen." As Clara held her hand, Evelyn took a deep breath, one that sounded exactly like the wind moving through tall grass, and smiled before drifting away. When Clara looked down, the last entry in the Book of Breath was written in Evelyn's elegant handwriting. "Death doesn't wear clothes. It wears silence, the kind that feels like peace." That night, Clara felt it too, a calm breath that wasn't hers, a soft whisper of air that seemed to say, "Thank you for seeing me." And for the first time, she understood. Death wasn't a monster or a shadow. It was simply the moment the world paused long enough to let love breathe one last time.